All right, everybody. Just finished up our lectures for this morning and want to go over the second portion. So this is directly related to the question that you will be answering in this week's discussion forum. Please remember to do that. Talk a little bit about the role of women in the 1950s. So first of all, as you know, and many of you wrote about, women's roles changed during World War II as a result of a lot of young men being pulled off to war. Women stepped in to the breach and filled the gap. Here we see a couple of pictures of some new opportunities that were presented to women during World War II. Jobs that previously had been unavailable to women are now going to be available to women on a large scale. Okay, so this is a new thing in the 1940s. But by the 1950s, we see that even if women are sticking around in the workplace, it's a more traditional patriarchy. It's a more traditional patriarchal hierarchy, right? So there's these more traditional roles of women in these support roles, less leadership opportunities, right? Like a secretary here with her boss in 1950. Okay, there's a lot of social pressure in the 1950s. So there's a desire to return to normalcy after the war, just like we saw in the 1920s. There's going to be family pressure. There's going to be pressure to marry early and have a lot of kids, to stay at home and be a mom, and to protect the nuclear family. So here we have kind of this stereotypical wedding picture of Jackie Kennedy from 1953. And that's what happens. There's a lot of women who go home. Happily, a lot of women will go home and have babies and start a family because that too was something that they wanted to do. And so we're going to see this massive boom in birth rate, and we're going to see we call it the baby boom, right? And this generation is affectionately known as the baby boomers. So we're going to see a baby boom during this time, and we're going to see a lot of women are going to if they don't desire to, they're going to give into the pressure to stay home and to manage their families and raise their children. Okay, so we see a portrayal of what people should be doing in media and with a lot of television shows. This is a famous show called It Beaver from the 1950s and 60s. That's Ward Cleaver there. It looks like they're looking at a photo album of family photos. Above Ward is his oldest son, Wally, and next to Wally is June Cleaver. That's how she dresses to clean the house and prepare dinner. And then in her arms is the youngest Theodore Cleaver, also known as Beaver Cleaver, right? And so this family kind of typified the 1950s stereotype of gender roles, right? Ward would go off to work every day. June would stay at home, take care of the house, dressed in her Sunday best, all done up, right? Ward would come home, she'd have dinner ready, the boys getting into typical 1950s shenanigans. All right. 1950s is also the rise of suburbia. A lot of this is the result of the Great Migration and white flight, but it's also some innovations and some government spending. So the GI Bill is a bill that helps soldiers to integrate back into the American economy and society in the 1950s. They can go to college now, and the government will pay for it. They can get home loans through the Veterans Association. And there's going to be some innovations in housing. This is Levittown in New York, built in the 1950s. The idea that that this guy had was, I'm going to buy up a huge tract of land, and just like Henry Ford, I'm going to be systematic about producing homes. And so we're going to mass produce homes with an assembly line type of method. And so tons of houses down here, but really we're looking at probably 4 or 5 basic designs. So it makes it really easy to fabricate and put them together. You don't need skilled carpenters and craftsmen. You need people who know how to read plans and swing hammers, and it's going to really lower the cost of the houses, and the manufacturing part drops in cost as well because you do it on a mass scale. All right. We also see in the 1950s, there's some pretty stereotypical ads from the 1950s. We see household products constantly being marketed to women, kind of supporting the stereotype that that's a woman's role. I love this one on the left that, here's this woman who is on her wedding day. Notice she's just as done up when she's ironing as she is for her wedding. And she actually might even look a little bit happier with the iron in her hand than she did on her wedding day. And so this was the expectation that you should be a happy housewife, that this is what you should be desiring. And if you're not, there might be something off, right? And that's where women are going to start to push back against that in the 1960s and into the 1970s and say, there's nothing wrong with me if I don't want to be happy about doing ironing, right? Maybe I want to do other stuff. We're going to see the beginnings of second wave feminism. So the question that you're going to ask this week, as you are reading the documents, and we kept the documents short because we know a lot of you are probably finishing up your projects, but the question is the image of the happy 1950s housewife accurate? Were they really happy? And obviously that's a big generalization, but what should we say about this image of the happy 1950s housewife? Okay, so take a look at those documents, think about it, and think about what you saw in this presentation, and provide your responses in the forum. Also, remember that you need to respond to somebody else's post as well. All right, take care. Have a good week. I will see you hopefully on Thursday as we talk about the civil rights movement.